Let me know when we're ready to start, Ifra.
You can go ahead, Claudette.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Claudette Holloway, RNAO's President-elect, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Today, we will hear from candidates from the Region 4 and Region 8 representative positions. All other candidates, apart from the representative of the interest group chairs on the ticket of nominations for 2022, have been acclaimed. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. We recognize that our work and the work of our members takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. We also wish to acknowledge that the office of RNAO is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We also recognize that the participants of this meeting are located in other traditional lands across Ontario. Today, this land is still home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this territory. By personally making a land acknowledgement, you are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years. We encourage you to learn about the land you reside on and the treaties that are attached to it. Land acknowledgements are an act of reconciliation, and we must all do our part. The structure of the webinars is as follows. We will hear brief introductions from each candidate in order of region. Each candidate will have 5 minutes for remarks, followed by questions from the audience members' submitted questions. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes for closing remarks. The order of speakers was selected prior to this webinar. Candidates will alternate turns in answering questions. If you would like to ask a question of a candidate, there are 2 ways to do so. I will open the floor for questions following candidate introductions, and you can verbally address your questions to the candidates, or you may raise your hand using the raise hands feature on Zoom. You will be able to unmute yourself and ask a question. Please state your name in case there are multiple questions, and I will address you in order. You may also submit your questions by typing in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Type your questions there, and Ifra, who is assisting us today, will read your question. Feel free to type your questions at any point during the webinar as you think of them. However, these will be addressed during the question period. Candidates will have an opportunity to address each question in rotating order. Candidates have 2 minutes to respond to a question. Ifra will announce when they have 30 seconds left to speak. If they go over this time, I will ask them to stop. Let's begin with our Region 4 candidates. Our 2022 candidates for Region 4 are Michelle Hire and Nehawalibhai. Michelle will be our first speaker. However, candidates will rotate order of speaking. You will have 5 minutes each for introductions.
All right, can everyone hear me okay? Thank you, Claudette. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that I'm gathering today from the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the First Credit Nation, as well as the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and Haudenosaunee peoples. Welcome, everyone. So my name is Michelle Hire, and I'm a registered nurse from Waterloo, Ontario, and it's my honor to seek your vote to serve as the Region 4 representative. I started out my healthcare career over 20 years ago as an unregulated care provider in a rural long-term care home. This is where I found my passion for seniors and for nursing. I remember I was about 16 years old when I went home to my mom and I said, you know what, I found out what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to take care of seniors. While I continued to work in long-term care, I found myself wanting to learn more and more about how I could better help the residents I served. This led me to enroll in the practical nursing program. After 6 years as a practical nurse, I went on to graduate from the RPN to BSCN Bridge. As a nurse, I worked over a decade at my local hospital in various areas, including complex continuing care, mental health, acute care, and gerontology. During this time, I also worked as a clinical instructor, mentoring students to the clinical environment. My passion for nursing education then prompted me to go on to complete my master's. During my master's, I continued to follow that passion I had as that 16-year-old in long-term care and was looking for solutions for long-term care residents. I researched the culture change and the quality of life for seniors living in long-term care. In my current role, I'm working at Conestoga College as the chair of seniors care in the Canadian Institute for Seniors Care, where we focus on policy, research, education, and workforce development to support Canadian seniors. In addition to this role, I am the RNAO Best Practice Spotlight Lead at Conestoga and the chair of the Internationally Educated Nursing Program, where I help to support internationally trained nurses to get registered to practice in Canada. I believe that the transition into the workforce for nursing students is the responsibility of all of us, including academic institutions, healthcare organizations, educators, nurses, and professional organizations such as RNAO. In my role at Conestoga, I'm committed to ensuring that the future of nursing has what I've termed the 5 C's: the competencies to do the job, the confidence to ask questions, compassion to care, and the drive for continued learning, as well as a culture of mentorship where they feel truly supported. I believe RNAO offers new nurses all of this and more, and that's why I'm really interested in becoming a Region 4 rep. While I've been an RNAO member for years, it wasn't until I started to be really involved that I truly understood the value of RNAO and felt that sense of professional identity as a registered nurse. I still remember the first Queen's Park I attended. I left feeling invigorated and hopeful, seeing the influence RNAO had on public policy. The influence of my first experience at Queen's Park led me to seek out more volunteer positions with RNAO, including the Communications ENO, President of Waterloo Chapter, Leadership Succession Committee, Provincial Nominations Committee, and the Finance Officer for the Nursing Research Interest Group. These positions have provided me an opportunity to further see the benefit of RNAO. I know that everyone on this call today is well aware of the challenges nurses are facing today. We know that COVID-19 has already exacerbated an already antiquated healthcare system. We know that a large proportion of nurses are burnt out and intend to leave the position in 5 years. We know that nurses face workplace violence and systemic racism. Despite all of these horrific challenges nurses are facing, I truly am hopeful. I believe that nurses have an opportunity more than ever now to stand up, be leaders, and demand change and promote public policy, all because of the foundation RNAO built almost 100 years ago. So here's where I see the biggest value of RNAO. I know alone I'm just one voice, but with RNAO, we have the 48,000 voices strong that we can together make a change. Together we can fight to repeal Bill 124, better support long-term care, fight the opioid and climate crisis. We're truly in this together. So this is why I'm running to serve as the RNAO Region 4 rep to help bring the voices of nurses to the tables we need to be at to make that change. Lastly, I want to remind all the nurses to get out there and vote in the upcoming provincial election, June 2nd. It's our professional duty to ensure our elected leaders hear the voices of healthcare providers and understand what is needed to support a healthier Ontario. Now is the time for nursing and health to be a priority. So thank you to RNAO for all of your advocacy and support, and to all the nurses in Ontario for your tireless efforts, especially over the last 2 years. It would be the utmost honor for me to serve the nursing community as the Region 4 rep. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all today and to run for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Nisha?
All right, okay. I am just sharing my screen. Give me a moment here. Good afternoon. As you know, my name is Nisha Michelle, and similar to Michelle, I'm running as a candidate for Region 4 representative for RNAO board. And what you see on this screen, let's walk the talk on nurse well-being, is my mantra, a call to action focused on policymakers and system leaders to make nurses well, to serve the people they always serve. Just a quick comment on who I am. I'm a mother of 2 young adult daughters and recently an empty nester. One of my daughters just turned 20 today. I feel very old, but that's okay. I live in Burlington. I am a registered nurse with experience in community hospitals and provincial planning environment. I also had the honor of serving as a past president of Halton chapter from 2015 to 2017. And I'm also a coach with a passion for personal and team well-being. What is important to me as a person, as a nurse, that every action and care supported through knowledge base is important. Fairness and equity is important, and equity cannot happen without inclusion and belonging. Connecting and mentoring is something that is important to me as a nursing leader and as a human. And well-being of people that I work with, I live with, and I play with. Their well-being increases my well-being. That's what I believe in. That's what is important to me. And of course, lifelong learning. My specific beliefs about nursing policy that requires a lot of attention for all the leaders, nursing and beyond. First and foremost, nurse well-being is a policy issue. Fair and respectful nursing remuneration is something that is not only important in the pandemic times, but going forward also. And I also believe that diversity, inclusion, and equity issues are usually baked into the structures that we operate in, regardless of individual belief. I think it's the structures that we need to address. And for all the 3 issues that I've talked about, I see every nurse in Ontario as a potential policy champion. If I'm successful, if I have the honor to serve as a representative for Region 4, I will work with the nurses of Region 4 in identifying and supporting calls to action through policy and awareness to improve nurse and clinician well-being. I think nurse well-being and any work that we do to improve nurse well-being is going to help the overall clinician well-being, because nurses are the central point in our healthcare system, whether you're in hospital, community, or public health. Bill 124 and other nursing remuneration issues, anything that RNAO will work on, and anything that Region 4 will identify, I will make sure that I'm taking the Region 4 voice and RNAO or central voice back to region to create that pipeline of action. Also, I'm sure many of you attended the Nursing Through Crisis presentation, where the nursing survey results were shared with media and all of us. And it has a lot of solid nuggets in terms of measures that we can focus on in helping nurses stay in nursing. And I will, along with my Region 4 colleagues, will help lead on those measures as appropriate. And last but not the least, working with my Region 4 colleagues and RNAO board in reducing structural barriers to equity for the diverse members of nursing and diverse members of the population that we serve. You may have heard in the Nursing Through Crisis presentation that that number was staggering for me. 14,000 internationally educated nurses are in the system. And as we work to bring some of them or many of them to nursing, the issue of diversity and inclusion is going to be top of the mind. And I will work with RNO and Region 4 members in that regard. So that is my presentation, and thank you for your time. And I want to echo Michelle's voice, her call for all of us to come out and participate in the voting, provincial voting, as well as RNO voting. And let's move the nursing and health forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Our 2022 candidates for Region 8 are Seppeline Dionerin and Kathleen Picard. We'll start with Seppeline. However, candidates will rotate order of speaking. You will have 5 minutes each for introductions. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Seppeline Dionerin. My nursing career started in England. From a nurse to a nurse midwife, I practiced midwifery in England in the public health and in the hospital arena, high-risk maternity unit, immigrated to Canada, got my RN, my Bachelor of Science of Nursing, Masters of Education, and then was head of a maternity unit. And the goal was great transformation into a totally family-centered care model. I love a challenge, and having experience in family-centered care and that type of family-centered care model proceeded. A new building, a lot of training at the level of staff, community collaboration, and completed with 100%. And we gained award of excellence with accreditation for our work. That was a defining moment for myself and the staff. Currently, I am RNO Policy and Political Executive Network Officer for ING. Was also one of the founding members of ING and co-chair of ING. I have been an active member of RNO for 30 years, holding various executive roles in chapter and interest group, and also 3 diabetic professional groups. For Durham, Northumberland, I've been a policy and political for 2 terms, and for international interest group, I'm on the last year of my 2 terms for policy and political action. I have very wide experience locally, nationally, and internationally in leadership, administration, academia, long-term care, public health, board governance, and directing, manager, and education coordinator maternal and child programs. Currently, I am part of the Durham Region Immunization Program Outreach Educator for Diabetes Canada and facilitator of the Self-Management Programs Home and Community Service Central East. My years of advocacy has been wide and really a lot of advocacy. I presented a lot of conferences at RNAO conferences. One of them was cultural diversity in nursing practice, education, and youth. Just recognizing the diversity in our populations. We really have to look at sort of cultural nursing within our practices. I listened to members in the Global Village at IDF conference in Abu Dhabi, Dubai in 2017, and really understood how equity is not spread across the world. I was invited, Honorable Marion Boyd, to speak on women's issues because I was working on some policies around women's issues. And again, I was moderator for RNO National Conference, Stopping Women's Abuse in Issues, Solutions, and Actions. And I was one of the advocacy members in 2021 who successfully advocated for Diabetes 360 Strategy, Bill 327, together with MP Sodia Sidhu, House of Commons Standing Committee. And this bill was passed in the budget in 2021. As one minister stated, Seppeline introduced me to RNO. Another MP wrote in a frame letter, your leadership and community involvement over the past 4 years have positioned the chapter for tremendous success in the future. I have actively advocated for nurses and for health during Queen's Park on the Road, Queen's Park Day, Nursing Week, and 1 year at QPR, I visited 6 MPPs and nursing, excuse me, nurses and nursing students, and another year and take your MPP to work during the height of the pandemic, pivotal in bringing nurses and politicians together during Nursing Week virtually to discuss how COVID-19 affected their practice and their ridings. I gained the Award of Excellence in Policy and Political Action, and I think that's a testament to my lifelong passion and commitment to make healthcare and nursing a priority. I was part of the organizing team 2021-2022 for international speakers to the ING annual AGM discussing COVID-19 issues. I was pivotal in partnering with the Board of Trade and Region with all candidates meeting 2018 provincial and federal election, and then provincial election 2022, collaborating with Durham Northumberland chapter, and was pivotal in engaging the MPPs to a very successful all candidates meeting. I have always mentored the nurses and nursing students and international nurses, cooperative grade 12 students, just to give them a glimpse of the life as a nurse. I've always encouraged and motivated nurses to the Bachelor of Science program long before it became entry to practice, and consistently encouraged nurses to be part of RNAO environment. I've developed a sustainable 3-part perinatal program, also a breastfeeding program for one of our academic facilities, with the Emerging Family-Centered Care and Breastfeeding Rates in Canada, collaborated with public health and all levels of care in the region, and wrote a breastfeeding manual, and which was sold very extensively across the region. Also received Excellence of Award for that. As co-chair of ING in the past year, continued to chair ENO meetings, mentored co-staff, participated in co-chair role, and collaboratively, we have continued steadfastly with all the ING mission, completing and recruiting very effective ENOs for 2021-2023 term, and consistently supporting them in their role, completed ING new website, produced members' voices, reports, collaborated with Durham Northumberland chapter with the fall tour, QPR, and all candidates meeting. At ING and at AGMs, continue to foster growth, understanding, and collaboration in global issues that impact nurses and nursing practice locally and nationally. And lastly, I must say, being part of the RNF family for all these years and a board member of the Ajax Libraries Chair and the chair of the Anti-Black Racism of the Ajax Library Board, and with the training of the Carver Model of Governance, has served me very well and has positioned me for the role of RNA representative on the board. And as I concur with other members, please vote. Go out and vote. And as I have ended my presentation, I hope you're able to join me on this journey, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Thank you. Now, Kathleen.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this webinar later on through the recording, thanks again for taking the time to learn about some of the candidates and what we have envisioned for joining RNAO as region reps. So my name's Kathleen. I've been an RN for 5 years. I have experience working in the acute care hospital sector, where I still work as a bedside nurse. And for the last 3 years, I've also been working in the community sector as a care coordinator, arranging home care services for patients and providing system navigation, connecting people with community resources and supports, and facilitating those that need complex and have high care needs into long-term care. Prior to nursing, I actually also spent time working at a local pharmacy as a pharmacy technician for many years. and also provided team support to a palliative care outreach team, as well as doing some research when I was a university student. My passion and purpose has always been working in healthcare. Since I was a young individual, the main thing that I've always wanted to do in life was to work in healthcare. And for me, my commitment is for quality and patient-centered care. I believe we need to hear the voices of those that we're caring for and ensure that they have quality services and care that are meeting their needs. My interest has also been in upstream and equitable approaches to healthcare. And so that's where I see my experience and knowledge and passion aligning with RNAO's mission, vision, and ends. So throughout my involvement with RNAO and the Durham Northumberland chapter, there's been many things that I've accomplished over my years of involvement. I've planned, organized, and chaired many meetings and events with members, including several fall tour events where we hosted RNAO's CEO and presidents. I've served as a consultation rep for the annual general meeting. I've attended assembly meetings and was a guest speaker during some membership and engagement sessions. I worked with the chapter and submitted the application for Chapter of the Year, which Durham Northumberland was awarded in 2017. To raise the profile and highlight the importance of nursing throughout my role as policy and political action and chapter president, I reached out to local municipalities and cities to receive proclamations to recognize Nursing Week and share those with our members and the greater public and community. And we've also arranged a flag to be flown at the local town hall to really highlight and show the importance of nurses as members of our healthcare community and the valuable work that they do. I've organized and participated in membership recruitment efforts at our local healthcare organizations during Nursing Week, and as a workplace liaison, also delivered flyers and posters to recruit new RNAO members. I've also recruited members to serve as our executive positions within the chapter so that we have a strong and ongoing community of local nurses to talk about the issues and engage with our community. I've been a mentor and role model for nursing students and supporting nursing student-led events and ideas. I've participated in many political action events and activities, including Queen's Park Days, Take Your MPP to Work, Queen's Park on the Road, and meeting with politicians and advocating for nursing, healthcare, and social issues. Most recently, we just hosted our all candidates meeting ahead of the upcoming provincial election. So this was another opportunity for us to show the value and the voice of nursing and what it is that we need and want our provincial elected officials to do to make changes for nursing and for our healthcare system. I also served as the chair of the Provincial Resolutions Committee from 2019 to 2021, and I've supported RNAO's efforts and mission by signing action alerts, encouraging co-workers to sign and amplify RNAO's message on social media. Like Michelle, I'm also very hopeful and want to be part of the collective group of nurses and RNAO members to continue our advocacy efforts and strive for improvements in nursing and healthcare. And I would be pleased to serve as Region 8 board rep.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now I have moderator questions for you, and I believe you already have the order of which you should respond. As a member of a region, chapter, and interest group, what are your perceptions of the difference between the role of a regional rep and the role of the president of a region, chapter, or interest group? You have 2 minutes to respond.
All right, I think it's my turn to respond. This is Nisha. Based on the involvement that I have had with RNAO over the years, I see chapter and regional executives, they lead and work with the chapter that they're leading the interest group that they're leading, whereas the regional rep is the liaison or voice liaison between the region and the RNAO board. So regional rep would work in supporting and working in partnership with chapter executives and interest group to support their leadership, and also take their issues, concerns, voice to the board and other RNAO or forum. So that's my perception and understanding of the difference between region and chapter leaders.
Thank you, Nisha. Michelle, are you next?
Thank you. So as representatives of RNAO, I think it's important that all roles really uphold the mission, visions, and values of RNAO, maintain the reputation of RNAO and that brand, and always act in the best interest. But that being said, I do see some differences between the chapter president and the region rep roles in terms of operations. So for the president of the chapter, they really need to have the finger, on the pulse of nursing and health in their own community. They do this by building engagement with local members, ensuring they have representation from all sectors on the executive, and listening to the voices of nurses within their chapter specifically. It's really important that they build a strong network of nurses within the community and provide leadership to the chapter ENOs. They strategically plan events in response to the needs of their local chapter and the RNAO strategic priorities. Disseminating key information amongst chapter members and supporting, local RNAO recruitment initiatives. Whereas I see the region rep is obviously more of a region role than a local community role. So for example, Region 4 has multiple chapters within the portfolio, and that region rep then would work in partnership with all the chapter presidents of the region to understand what's happening at that local level, to then bring it forward to the board at a region level of what they're seeing. They would also make sure that communication from RNAO gets to the chapter presidents that maybe needs to be disseminated, action alerts, and so on. As a board role, the region rep, also has that fiduciary responsibility to RNAO. So they really have to focus on the leadership, helping inform policy and supporting RNAO to meet their outcomes.
Thank you, Michelle.
So I believe it's myself next. It's Kathleen. Is that right? Okay. So my understanding is very similar with Michelle's. So it's to represent the larger collective voices of nurses, NPs, and nursing students within the region. So up here in Durham, Northumberland, we've been a chapter, and as Michelle said, it's mostly engaged as a chapter president. You mostly engage with the chapter, whereas at the region, it's a higher level. So connecting with the various chapters. And then from my understanding as well, the board representative also supports and connects with some of the interest groups that they're assigned as well. My also understanding of the role is to assist and direct the organization with meeting its mission, values, and ends, and to serve on other committees, to review reports, and to address any other organizational issues that come up for the organization or for our members. So that's what I envision for being the regional rep.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And it's me next, Kathleen.
Go ahead.
Yes, and I look at the differences of the groups. As far as the chapter presidents and chapter chairs, I see that role as an organizing and chair executive meetings, producing members' voices and reports to share the work of the group, representing the group at RNL meetings like the Assembly, the AGM, Queen's Park, and as well as with the public and also with the media, recruiting and mentoring and supporting other executives in their roles, really ensuring that any information that I receive from RNAO is disseminated to the interest groups and to the chapters, and really working with the the financial officer usually to help manage the funds that comes through the chapters or the interest group. For the regional rep, it's a little bit different. I see that one of the person, again, as someone who engaged with RNO assembly meetings, regional rep participates in chapter activities of the year in their own chapters. And in my case, Region 8 has 3 chapters. Listen to the chapters, their success and challenges. Bring to RNO issues that cannot be resolved at the chapter level. Share chapter highlights during the board of directors meeting. Share knowledge and expertise and the passion in regards to activities in the different chapters. So that's how I see the differences between both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Second and final question. RNAO promotes diversity and individual worth among its RN, nurse practitioner, and nursing student membership. With the increase of racism, discrimination, and violence, how will you support RNAO in addressing anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-Indigenous racism and discrimination against gender, sexual orientation, and religion in Ontario?
So I am up first.
Go ahead.
I think it's, I'm up first there. Okay, wonderful. So thank you very much. I think it's a very important question. First off, I think it's important for us to all acknowledge that systemic racism and discrimination exists at the individual, organization, and policy level. And so addressing racism and discrimination is really the responsibility of all of us, whether at the board level or as an individual nurse. Everyone has that right to work in an environment free of harassment and discrimination. One of the first steps of working towards an inclusive community is to acknowledge we're all residing on the traditional territory of Indigenous people. For example, I'm coming from Treaty 3 today, and Claudette did a fantastic job leading and opening this meeting with the land acknowledgement as well. We must all work towards reconciliation by learning about Indigenous culture and addressing our own preconceived values and beliefs. I think as a region rep, we need to emphasize collaborative relationships that are based on understanding, acceptance, and respect. We must engage our regions and chapters in educational programming and initiatives to raise awareness, encourage discussion, and promote inclusion. We need to equip all nurses, no matter their race or sexual orientation, with the opportunities to develop advocacy and leadership skills and ensure there's diversity at the leadership level in RNAO, at our regions, at our chapters again, and in the organizations where we work. It's important for us as leaders to really create awareness. So for example, at the Waterloo chapter, as presidents, I was working with some chapter members who really had expertise in Indigenous education. So we've offered 3 events in the past year to really support that truth and reconciliation education. The other piece that we really need to look at as leaders is to implement diligent policies for discrimination. Looking, the board level needs it, of course, but again, taking these things back to our nursing organizations where we work. And of course, always leading by example. I know RNAO has fantastic resources such as the Black Nurses Task Force, the new Indigenous group led by Rachel Raddick. So I think it's our job to really educate others on these resources, implement these resources, and support the policies needed to fight racism and discrimination. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right. Thank you for responding to this very important question. I think Michelle provided a very good overview of how regional lead or any leader in within RNAO and beyond could support the initiatives and actions to promote diversity and individual worth from all the isms that we see in our day-to-day work and day-to-day living. In terms of what I will contribute, I will continue to find and participate in activities and calls for action to address systemic racism, because I think that is the foundation of structural barriers. Systemic issues are the foundation of all the isms that we deal with. And in that, many times I find that when you talk to individual people, sometimes it is just the matter of people not having a opportunity to mingle and connect with each other, to know people who are different than themselves, and also finding courage to address the structural and systemic barrier that we all talk about. I will work with chapter and RNAO leaders and beyond in any activity that will promote awareness within our membership, as well as beyond in addressing the diversity, inclusion, and racism issues that we deal with, and create opportunities for members to have conversation among themselves, formally and informally, to raise issues that we can collectively work on. Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha.
And it's Kathleen now, my turn. You know, what I will look at is, at RNAO, we already have an anti-Black racism interest group. We also have an Indigenous group, and we have a rainbow interest group. So what I would really like to see and support RNAO with is developing an anti-Asian interest group. I think we have enough data and incidents in our environment for RNAO to step up to the plate and really have a group of anti-Asian interest group. So I think that would be one of the great things. One of the things, again, will be sharing lived experience, inviting people to share the lived experience on the particular issues. Invite chairs of those interest groups to educate and raise the awareness of the issues with the chapters and other interest groups. Really encourage chapters to invite experts on the subjects to share their experiences and knowledge on issues of the specific groups. Again, really listen to the chapter's interest concerns around racism. Sign actions alerts for RNAO. And we had a survey from the anti-Black racism group. We want to expand on that survey, use that survey to make policies and procedures that will address all issues around anti-Black racism, anti-Asian and anti-Indigenous group. And that is really important to look at. And the other thing that we want to look at is encourage other members to be specific and look at their perspective and their experiences that they've had around anti-Black racism, anti-Asian and anti-Indigenous group. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Can I just say something else?
Does she have time, Ifra?
Yeah. The other thing I really wanted to mention was to use social media to really enforce the importance of educating and raising awareness of the issue of anti-Black racism, anti-racism, anti-Indigenous, because social media is one of the media that we use mostly. And when we put something on the social media sites, it gets disseminated very quickly. So I think one of the good things that we can do is really use social media to really say the importance of anti-racism and really share our experiences in that forum. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay, so I just want to think again, this is a really important topic, and even in light of what's going on in our world, we, as Michelle had said, we know that there is systemic racism in every area of our healthcare system and sectors, that nurses are facing it, on a daily basis, and this has to stop and can no longer continue. So that's one of my pledges, is that I support a zero tolerance for racism, discrimination, and violence towards any healthcare professional. And I'll stand up for that and fight for on those that are experiencing it on their behalf. I also think it's important that we continue to speak with and give those that do experience racism, discrimination, or violence that opportunity to share their lived experiences, to share their experiences of what's been going on. And we need to continue to amplify their recommendations and calls to actions. Personally, I've done a lot of self-reflection over the last few years too, as someone that's a white privileged person living in Ontario and hasn't had to experience a lot of these issues myself. I've done a lot of, like I said, self-reflection and work and learning and taking that upon my own to learn about what it is that these issues are, and to not only be an ally, but I want to go beyond just being an ally or sharing tweets or sharing messages, but we really need to take those actions to be sure that we can work together to tackle these problems, and being bold and having courage to speak out and address it when it does happen. So that's how I will work to support RNAO with tackling these issues.
Thank you, Kathleen. We will now open the floor to questions for all candidates. We will first take questions from the Q&A, and then attendees are welcome to unmute themselves to ask questions. Ifra, please read out any questions from the Q&A box first.
We don't have any questions in the Q&A box, but I see Dr. Cooper Brathwaite has her hand up, so I will unmute you now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Cooper Brathwaite.
Go ahead, Angela, you can unmute yourself.
I would like to ask the candidates, before I ask the question, I'll make a statement. RNAO board is responsible for the fiduciary responsibilities of RNAO. My question is, what is your understanding of fiduciary responsibilities?
Okay, we have the first order. I believe, Nisha, you're first.
Sure. So when we talk about fiduciary responsibility, we are talking about the full comprehensive responsibility, including financial, ethical, quality, to make sure that we are meeting the mandate that we have been given, and the people that, the membership that we are serving. So not just focus on financial, but the financial quality impact that we are making in driving policy and in driving members' interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Michelle?
Sure, thank you. So I think as a fiduciary responsibility, we need to act in the best interest of RNAO in all things we do. So we have to, look at how our revenue, and then look at maintaining appropriate expenses as well. I know we're very fortunate that RNAO has made some wise investment in financial choices in the past that puts them in a good position, but that doesn't mean that we are not, without risk at any point in time. So as a board member, you need to ensure that, we are maintaining that fiduciary responsibility in all things we do, looking at the what we spend, how we invest, and the revenue coming in to monitor that. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Kathleen?
Sorry, can you hear me? I believe I'm unmuted now. So my understanding of fiduciary responsibilities is, again, acting in the best interests of the group. So looking at the pros and cons to decision making and acting in a way that best supports the mission values of RNAO and of the collective group of nurses and our members. I also believe in acting in a responsible, professional, and ethical way. And I believe in representing RNAO in all aspects, whether that be on social media or out in the public, or with politicians, in the best interest in showing the values of nurses and tackling social issues and advocacy.
Thanks, Kathleen. Sapling?
Sapling here. Responsible and ethical, I will say. Meeting the mandate of fiscal responsibility, being aware of the financial quality of the organization, meaning that looking at expenditures and assets, looking at policies, how we write our policies, or what we spend to expend on our policies. Are those policies very effective for the population that we serve, our nurses? And also, one of the things that we want to be aware of is that always be prudent when you're using financial in a financial area, because sometimes it can be construed that it's used for other services than what it's meant for. So I will really implore members to be very, again, coming back to my first sentence, responsible, ethical, and efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Sapling. Go ahead.
We do have another question from Dr. Cooper Brathwaite, past RNAO president, in the Q&A box. So Dr. Cooper Brathwaite says, RNAO is a policy board. What is your understanding of a policy board?
Ifra, can I just ask you a question? Can you put the question up on the screen?
Yeah, if you click on the Q&A box, you should be able to see it.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So my understanding of a policy board then is a board that really directs the operations. So they're going to develop policies to guide those operations and make decisions. So in the context of, I'm thinking like a region rep or board members, it means that we have to go back to upholding those mission, visions, values of RNAO and uphold the brand and all the policies we are putting forth and all the decisions we are making. But really coming back to the fact that the operations are directed by these policies that we would develop to guide all of the decision making for RNAO.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay.
And Nisha?
All right. So I have served in policy board in supporting housing in the Halton area for the past 6 years. And in one sentence, I would say the role of the policy board is to have your nose in, but fingers out of the operation. So working with the board members and the CEO in developing the policies that will guide the operation, and not to get involved in the operational minutia, but work from a 10,000 foot away level, focusing on what policies we need to put in place, what policy strategies we need to have in place that will help meet the mandate of the organization.
Thanks, Nisha. Sapling?
What I will look at as a policy board, it's different. One, you have a governance and you have operation. And with the policy board, it's strictly governance. The operation is left to the CEO to take care of the operation, the finances and those things. As far as the policy board, you look at the executive limitations. You look at what are the policies that you have in place. You pay attention to your policies. In this arena of anti-Black racism, looking at your policy board, policies and procedures, do they meet, does the language now reflect the population we live in? These are the type of things that the policy board looks at, as opposed to the operation side, which the CEO deals with. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Kathleen?
Yeah, so my understanding of the policy board is as similar as what others have said. It's about governing, developing policies, and not as much directing the exact operation, the day-to-day operations of the organization. And it's also about setting out those policies, but then allowing the CEO of the organization to carry out those policies. As a member-driven association, I think it's important for us to also recognize that a lot of the resolutions help guide the work and policy work and advocacy work of our organization. So it's important for us to then use those resolutions or recommendations from members to help guide the direction of our organization and our advocacy.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Ifra?
No other questions at this point. Angela, I see your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
I need to take it down. Thank you.
So if there's anybody else on the call who'd like to ask a question, you can just go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask the question. Doesn't look like there's any questions, Claudette.
Thanks, Ifra. So hearing none, we will now move to the closing remarks from each candidate, and the order is Michelle, Nisha, Sappeline, and Kathleen. So Michelle, over to you for your closing remarks.
Thank you. I just want to say a thank you to Claudette and Ifra for organizing this event today and hosting it. And thank you to the whole RNAO team for your leadership and advocacy, especially during the last 2 years. I feel very privileged to be a registered nurse in Ontario and to be supported by such an amazing organization such as RNAO. I wanted to also acknowledge all of my nurse colleagues and mentors who've supported me along my nursing journey. Thank you to all of the registered nurses out there who have answered the call to serve over the last 2 years and beyond, of course. I wanted to give a shout out to my fellow nominees and for those of you listening on the call today for staying informed and exercising your right to vote. In closing, I just want to note that I am a proud RNAO member and I have a lot of passion for nursing and health. I'm truly honored to be able to run for the Region 4 rep. If elected, I intend to serve the region by upholding the mission, visions, and values of RNAO in all I do, listening to the Region 4 members to hear what matters most and bringing those voices back to the table, advocating for public policy, looking at supporting that equitable, accessible, person-centered healthcare that we know everyone in the world deserves. I do believe that an investment in nurses is really an investment in the health of all of our communities. So I'm very passionate to fight for nursing. We know that nursing is currently facing some of the greatest challenges of all time, but I truly am energized knowing that we are 48,000 members strong, because I do believe that there are strength in numbers. And I'm confident that we will see a brighter future in nursing because of all the work that our members and RNAO does. So thank you very much for having me today and listening to my closing remarks.
Thank you, Michelle.
Am I next now, right?
Nisha?
All right. So again, I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on my candidacy. and I am looking forward to wherever this takes us. Definitely, we have very strong candidates, both in Region 4 and Region 8. And if I have the honor to serve Region 4, my promise to you is I will work with every leader in the chapter and region to take the Region 4 voice to our NAO board and other forums. And among other things, be a leader in helping our NAO implement and advocate for initiatives that will improve nursing well-being, nursing remuneration, and inclusion and belonging of our diverse members, diverse nursing members, as well as best possible care through our membership for diverse population of Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. Seppeline?
First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity for representing the interest group and the chapter for the last 4.5 years. I've been very pivotal in the Durham-Northumberland chapter, and as I said, has had many accolades from my colleagues and others of my work I've done at the Durham-Northumberland chapter. And something with nurses are very great. We forget how great we are. And one of the things that I hold very dearly to me is that when I finished my tenureship, 2-year tenureship with the Durham-Northumberland chapter, they, unknowing to me, gave me a beautiful bouquet, a beautiful one of those. I can't remember the name of the plant. It's sitting on my window now, and maybe it knows that I'm doing something this week relative to that. So it's blooming ever so well. It's blooming ever so well. So that's what I want to say about nurses. We bloom a lot. Sometimes we fall, and sometimes we get up again. That's the things that we do very well as nurses. We are very resilient. We do rebound, as this is a very important time in our history in nursing and in healthcare. This pandemic has thrown us for a loop. This is not something on our lifetime that we as nurses have had to deal with, and the expansion of this COVID-19 issue, which continued on and on and on. As we all started, we thought it was going to be a 3-month thing and it would be gone about its merry business, but that didn't happen. So we see how nurses are very resilient. I want to give shout out to my colleagues, shout out to all the candidates on the ticket, and really one of the things to bring the issues to the table at RNAO, if I am elected region rep, to really representative of the nurses within those chapters. In Region 8, we have 3 chapters, Durham-Northumberland, Kinty, and Coworters, Victoria, and bring those 3 chapters issues and concerns and the nurses within those regions to the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. Kathleen?
So for my closing remarks, again, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy days to attend today's session, and to my fellow nominees and candidates for your efforts and for putting your name forward to represent RNAO and members. So I'd like to close by saying that I'm passionate about bringing nurses together and striving for positive change. I've demonstrated progressive involvement with RNAO and promised to be a voice and representative for members and to support the work of RNAO to advance the nursing profession and health policy. I see a future for nursing that emphasizes our empathy, our expertise, and our knowledge base, allowing us to act as leaders in policy development. I see nurses collaborating and empowering each other and working with governments to be part of that necessary healthcare and social change that we need for a more equitable and caring society. I promise to be a voice for nurses, and I'm excited to share my experience, leadership, and passion for the profession to serve as board representative for RNAO. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us this afternoon. And I, again, am pleased to participate alongside my fellow candidates.
Thank you, Kathleen. And so we come to the end. Thank you to the candidates for participating, and I know all the preparation that you went through to get ready for today. And also thank you to Dr. Cooper Brathwaite for her thoughtful questions. This webinar and future webinars will be archived on My RNAO, and you can find a link to them on the election pages. Our One Member, One Vote opened on May 24th at noon and will close on June 9th at noon. Remember to vote and remind your nursing colleagues to vote as well. Thanks again to IFRA, and a good day to everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.